TK, the Raisin Man.
All right, we back, man, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Rough year last year for Jacksonville. Rough year, man. Finishing 4-13. Of course, their quarterback Trevor Lawrence. You know, much has been talked about him. And we'll see if he has a bounce back year in Jacksonville. But they're only projected to win 7.5 games. Strict for schedule, ranking 24th. So not a gauntlet for the Jaguars, but they themselves have struggled in recent years, and you know, made a big move in the draft. We're gonna talk about that. You know, made some moves in free agency, but yeah, man. What do you think, man, about this Jacksonville Jaguars team, man? Before we get into the moves they made and break down the roster and all that, man. Just what's your overall thoughts about what you've seen in Jacksonville last year?
I think this Jaguars team last year was a major disappointment. They were projected to be a whole lot better than what they were at 4-13. They gave Trevor Lawrence his money, big money. Like real big money. And Trevor Lawrence turned out to be a dud, man. I think a lot of their struggles is because of his struggles. You put a lot on this kid's plate. You brought him over there to be your Dan Marino or your Patrick Mahomes or whatever when you drafted him. I think he was one of the highest recruits to come to the NFL, generational as they call him, what he did out there in Clemson. And he hasn't shown that Clemson pedigree in Jacksonville. And what is Jacksonville doing for that team since they let go of Tom Coughlin when he had those guys as Super Bowl contenders, when he built that defense over there? And I think they allowed their players to control that. They got Tom Coughlin out of there, and they've been down ever since. And they did get that playoff win against the Chargers and I think the year prior, but it's just something about this Trevor Lawrence kid, man, that I just think giving him that money might have been a huge mistake. And I just think if you're still trying to make this team go through Trevor Lawrence, you're not going to be anywhere as good as you want to be. I think they need to take a page out of the Chargers, bring in a coach that can contain Trevor Lawrence and make him be basically a regular quarterback. You ain't got to go out there and be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson for us to win games. Let's get the run game started and make sound and crisp and correct throws. Like Trevor Lawrence misses wide open receivers so much. And they got some talent over there at the receiver position, believe it or not. But it's with that guy in that picture, man. What is he going to do?
And T-Law, man, they did go out and get him a new coach, Liam Cohen, the offensive, I believe he's the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Bucks last year. They did, you know, they did make a move in the front office for Trevor Lawrence. But coach, our resident coach, man, what's your thoughts on go ahead and talk a little bit about Liam Cohen and also what you seen last year with the Jaguars, and do you think Mr. Cohen may be the right man to turn Trevor Lawrence around? I don't know, he did some things over there with Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield.
For me, he's still someone you have to watch. I mean, he was OC for 1 year and got the head coaching job. So that's a kudos to him. That's what every coach would love to do. You know, go from position coach to a coordinator and then a head coach in a fast track. So I'm not poo-pooing his ascension. But, I would have loved to have seen him a little bit more as an OC, another year or two before you get a head coaching job. But hey, that seems to be the trend in the NFL, try and get to these young coordinators as quickly as possible. But, from past experiences watching our favorite team with the Giants with Ben McAdoo, is that always the right thing to do? So it leads me to wonder. Trevor Lawrence, I think one of the biggest things is going to be his maturation, but his ability to stay on the field. The past few years has been about injuries with him, and not being out there. So, and that takes away from your ability to grow as a player. So, that's what I'm going to be looking for, with him this year. And what do they do? I mean, the head coach, what type of system are you putting in? I mean, everybody raved about him with Tampa Bay. I mean, okay, kudos to him. He helped resurrect, in a sense, Baker Mayfield's career. So can he do that with Trevor Lawrence? I'm sorry. I just, it always sticks in my head, Sunshine from remember the Titans. But can he resurrect his career and get him headed in the right direction? So they're both tied together. So,
Mm-hmm. And Trevor Lawrence, of course, signed that 5-year, $275 million contract extension. Has not lived up to the bill so far, but we'll see. All right, let's take a look at some of the players that the Jaguars lost here this offseason. Of course, we talked about Christian Kirk being traded to the division rival Texans, which doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. Evan Ingram, man, who played a big part in their offense, won't be there, as will not Gabe Davis, who has moved on. Josh Reynolds, now a Jet. And, did lose some pieces on defense. Ledbetter going to the Giants, and then Ronald Darby retiring, apparently. So, but which one of these losses, if any, do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the Jaguars moving forward?
I got a couple of people in YG. If you can bear with me, I think Dearness Johnson is a loss for them. I think Dearness Johnson stepped up when Trevor Etienne is going through his struggles. I think the loss of Christian Kirk is really going to hurt Trevor Lawrence, because I think that was his quick guy, and that's what Trevor Lawrence does best. Even though he has a strong arm, his deep ball, he seems to always overthrow people. The loss of Evan Ingram and Luke Farrell, both his tight ends, is going to hurt. He lost his best offensive lineman in Brandon Sheriff, and Mitch Morse retiring hurts them as well. I think they lost their best run defender in Jeremiah Ledbetter coming over to the New York Giants. And I think Andre Sisco, they lost a leader in that defense. And Andre Sisco, he talks a lot of noise. He's not that great, but he is a good player. I'll give him that. And Ronald Darby retiring, I think he just got tired of getting his butt whooped. So, they lost a couple of pieces, man. But I don't know what you think, Coach.
I'm with you on Sheriff and Morris. You know me. Y'all know me. When I talk about the offensive and defensive lines, I mean, that's your foundational point to any team. So when you lose key pieces there, how do you replace that? And then, like you said, Kirk and Evan Ingram. I mean, those are really, as much as Giants fans don't like hearing it, but Evan Ingram became a reliable contributor to Jacksonville. They used him the way the Giants did not use him when he was here. You could talk about the drop passes, but he became reliable. He really did. And Kirk, what can you say? I mean, we've seen what his maturation, through the years. So I'm with you, Pat, on those key players. What are you doing, which goes into, especially offensive line. I talked about CJ Stroud, straight rush right into a quarterback's face. That's right there in the middle of the quarterback's face. So what are you doing to replace that and hopefully improve there, to help your quarterback grow, especially a quarterback who has been dealing with injuries for the past couple of years?
Yeah, man. I agree, man. People been sleeping on Evan Ingram, man. He's a good player, man. He was a good player with the Giants, and I think he's going to be dynamite over there in Denver, in Sean Payton's system with Bo Nix, man. But I'm with you guys, man. Those weapons that Trevor Lawrence lost, is going to impact them. But new coach, new system, so we'll see, man. Let's see who they bought in for this new coach and this new system. All right, getting into it here. Johnny Mundit, they signed Nick Mullins, I guess, to back up Trevor Lawrence. De'Ami Brown coming over on a 1-year deal. They signed Patrick McCarry from the Baltimore Ravens, a good guard right there. Also signed Fred Johnson to help out on the offensive line. Couple pieces on defense. Dwayne Smoot, Emmanuel Ogba, and Jordan Lewis being added to the defense there. But which one of these key additions, man, do you think is going to have going to help out the Jaguars this season, man? Which one of these, man, you think is going to have the biggest impact?
It's going to be, oh man, this team here, bro. They got a lot of fill-ins. A lot of those contracts with fill-in players. Mm-hmm. Want to see what Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray. Because the Jaguars, I do believe if Trevor Lawrence gets his act right, the Jaguars offense will be okay. It'll be okay with De'Ami Brown coming in as that third receiver behind Thomas and a future draft pick that we're going to talk about here soon. Him being as a third option. I think that would be okay. But Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray are going to have to pan out because that secondary can get cooked at any given time. It can be. And if their defense is not playing well, I don't think this Jaguars team will play well because it's just something about that kid, Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully he proves me wrong, but I just don't think he's a $55 million man. I just don't think so. And when you put that much, capital into one player, you're expecting him to be that guy to put you over the hump, and he has shown he's not that guy. So they're going to need their defense to get back to playing good defense, holding you to 17 points, 20 points, sometimes 14 points when the offense is struggling mightily. And then they lost Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, those two guys that bailed them out to move the chains a lot of the times. What is Trevor Etienne? Is his head straight, or they're going to have to get rid of him? Then you lost Dearness Johnson, the guy that came in and filled in for him. So we'll see. I'm not going to say I hate the moves that they did, but it was just a bunch of fill-ins, man, to me. I don't think they got better with this free agent class.
Yeah, man. Definitely not a lot of splash moves. But what's your thoughts, Coach? Who do you think can have the biggest impact from the Jaguars offensive their offseason additions here in free agency?
Logan Cook. The punter, right? No, seriously.
I guess they're gonna be kicking a lot. Yeah, that offense don't move the football. Yeah.
I mean, you bring in 4 offensive linemen, like Pat said, they're fillers. I mean, look, it's like, you go to the dentist and you just get your fillings as opposed to really diving in and really getting some work done on your teeth. So it's yes, it's not impressive. Are they more camp bodies, or are they guys who are really going to be key contributors? Because I don't know. And it goes back to what I said about the quarterback, because, we're in a day and age where the quarterback is the most important position, where you have to protect that position. And if you don't protect it, the most important position will eventually be on his back looking up at the sky, or on the sideline, recovering from an injury. So that's going to be key more than anything else for them. You did bring in a couple of tight ends, so we'll see what that does. Like Pat said about Brown as the third receiver, that's a good one. Again, all of these pieces are just fillers. Now, is that because you paid Lawrence all that money and you're in a small market, so
that plays a part of it.
They don't want to pay a lot of money for a lot of big money players, because you let some big money players go. I don't want to say big money, but important money players go, where you're bringing in guys just to fill in for them, and hopefully you're able to compete and make a run. So but I guess a lot of this is also going to be contingent upon the young players that they bring in, the draft and so on and so forth.
Yeah, man. So let us take a look at the 2025 NFL draft class for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was a good one, I must say. Started off with a bang, of course, trading up with the Browns to get Travis Hunter, two-way superstar to Colorado. It's going to definitely help that defense that we just talked about, and help hopefully add to their receiving core, man. Losing Christian Kirk, man, but you gained Travis Hunter, man. So not a bad consolation prize there, I must say. Caleb Ransall, cornerback out of Tulane. They definitely need some cornerback help over there in Jacksonville. Wyatt Milam, offensive guard, man, that me and Pat talked to at the Senior Bowl. He is definitely going to help that offensive line for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Brashal Tootin, man, that was one of the most underrated prospects. I thought that was at the Senior Bowl from a running back standpoint. Out of Tech, man, runs hard, runs tough, man. He's going to definitely help that running game. Jack Kaiser and Jalen McLeod out of Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame and Jalen McLeod out of Auburn will definitely give them a boost at the second level of their defense, and also give you some special teams help there too, man. So, I mean, we pretty much talked to all of these guys at the Senior Bowl, man. Their whole draft class, Pat. But tell me, man, what's your thoughts, man, on who they took? Travis Hunter being the obvious one, man. But talk about some of the other players, man. That they
good point. We talked to half their draft class, just about.
Think about all of them.
Yeah. But we all know it's going to be Travis Hunter. It's going to be the Travis Hunter show over there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to put him in the slot. They're going to put him to the outside, but they'll put Diami Brown on the outside with him and Thomas and let him control, that Christian Kirk role of sorts. Travis Hunter's going to have to be as advertised for this team, but going into their other draft picks, I like the Wyatt Milam draft pick. Talked to him at the Senior Bowl. He actually stepped up. When we said, hey, we want to see a little bit more toughness from you in that interview, he went out there and he showed some toughness. He made himself into a third-round pick. We talked to Tootin, very good running back. Talked to Kaiser, very good coverage linebacker. So is Jalen McLeod. He got a little bit of thump to him. He's a straight line, but he's a coverage guy as well. And I like the LaQuint Allen at 236 from Syracuse. He could be that guy that could get those grimy yards.
Moheen too, man.
Yeah, Moheen from USC. He was pretty well as well. So their draft class is way better than their free agent class for me. I like their draft class. And if they, develop Liam Cohen, or however you say his name, Liam Cohen, you got to develop. This is a draft class where they're like molds of clay, and you develop them right, they can turn into a pretty doggone good draft class. Because even Ransall from Tulane has some skill that he can, produce for them.
Yeah, man. But what's your thoughts, Coach, man, on the Jacksonville Jaguars draft class? And do you think any of these guys, outside of the obvious Travis Hunter, can come in and contribute to immediately for this team?
Well, let's start with Hunter. First of all, how do you use him? Are you going to play? Are you going to do what he did at Colorado and play 100 plays in a game? I don't think that's going to work. So are you going to focus with him more on offense or on defense? And then the other side will just, on occasion, you're going to put him in there to play. I know Hunter wants to do both, and he wants to play as many plays, if not every play. That's just the dog in him. So I don't have a problem with the dog mindset. But, as a coaching staff, you got to pull the reins sometimes, and being that he's in his home state, he's going to want to show out, so, but yes, we all know that he's a player, so the other factor is, let's be real, he's light in the hind part. So, getting into the NFL, and eventually getting into the workout programs as you go along, will he get some good muscle mass, on his frame that can help him as he goes along? So, but, Mullen, I've looked at the film, definitely an offensive lineman who can develop. Monahan, I watched him a little bit, at SC, playing that, being that he played in the Big Ten and also formerly in the Pac-10, so how can you develop him? Because if you can develop him, he can be a service. I'm not going to say he's a gold jacket. No, I'm not saying that. But he can be an offensive lineman who can eventually help stabilize the interior of your offensive line. So that's going to be key right there. You guys hit on two, and I mean, I watched him for the last 2 years going up against, Rutgers. He is a baller. He can definitely, get those explosive plays, and he can create mismatch. Kaiser, former safety, great coverage skills. It's just that, will teams try and put him more in the run phase consistently? He'll put his nose in there and he'll make a tackle, but top play after play, if you're going up against, say, like a Baltimore, which likes to run, will he bear down? Yeah. So McLeod, he's a thumper, like you said, Pat. Especially playing in the SEC. So but again, it's more about his development. Lane is another one. He's intriguing. I watched a little bit of him at the Naval Academy. I think he does need to be developed a little bit more. He's going to probably start on special teams. And Allen, you guys know, I've done breakdowns on him. He's someone who, can be a nice third down back, catching the ball out of the backfield, trying to get to the corners on occasion. And he can also run up inside. So I don't want to make it seem like, that he's only an outside guy. There have been plenty of times at Syracuse that he just caught the lane right in between the A gaps, and he was gone. So, good draft for them. How do you develop talent that is here? Because they do have talent. And going forward, where do you go, in terms of, integrating this with your regular roster?
And speaking of the regular roster, let's break it down, man. Let's take a look at the overall picture here for Jacksonville, man. And honestly, I think you mentioned it earlier, Pat. I think they got some good cooking on offense, man. I see Brian Thomas Jr., De'Ami Brown, and Travis Hunter make a really good, triplet set of receivers. Still got Parker Washington over there, man, who I liked coming out of college. So I think they got a pretty good group there. Tight end wise, Brenton Strange, Johnny Mundit, they just signed coming in from the tight end spot. On the offensive line, Walker Little, Anton Harrison, right, left tackle. I don't know. You guys talk to me about those two, but I'm liking the interior so far. But man, this is gonna be on Trevor Lawrence, man. This is gonna be on Trevor Lawrence, and can he bounce back here and have a decent season, man, and be able to get the ball to some of these playmakers that they got. Defensive wise, they were the bottom of the league last year on defense, so I see why they they picked up a lot of pieces on defense, and bringing in Travis Hunter, helps them on both sides of the ball as well. So, but defensive wise, man, it might be another struggle for Jacksonville, man. I ain't gonna hold you, man, but you guys tell me what you think, man, about the state of this roster here, man, and do they have a strength, and where do they need to improve?
Yeah, see, what I see here with this roster, man, the offense, receiver-wise, I think they're good. They have a four-headed monster with Parker Washington, Hunter, Brown, and Thomas Jr. Their tackles scare me. Ezra Cleveland and Patrick McCarry, they can do what they do. Robert Hainsey, he's not bad, and Luke Fortner's not that bad either. Brenton Strange is a decent tight end. He can play your number one tight end. He's not going to be what Evan Ingram was, but he can play. He actually came in and did pretty well when Evan Ingram got hurt. So maybe that's what made Evan Ingram expendable to them. It's going to be up to Trevor Lawrence, man, in that run game. Is Trevor Etienne going to get back to form? Is Trevor Lawrence going to get back to form? That's what's going to hurt them on offense. Those offensive tackles and Trevor Lawrence in the run game. What are they going to do? If they're playing well, the offense will be okay. Now this defense, it's the same type thing. Trayvon Walker, number 1 pick overall. Has he been the guy that they wanted him to be since drafting him? I don't know. I have to do a little bit more research, but I haven't seen him, be that impact guy that opposite of one of the best pass rushers in the game, and Josh Hines Allen. Is Devin Lloyd going to step up and be that all-world linebacker they need him to be? And that secondary scares me, man. That secondary scares me. You got Eric Murray.
Yeah, it's thin out there, bro.
Yeah, you got Tyson Campbell and Jerry and Jones on the outside. Both of those guys get cooked. Jordan Lewis shows that he can be decent, but he can get cooked too. Now the safeties, Savage and Murray, half decent, but yeah, that roster there kind of scary.
Trayvon Walker, he had 10.5 sacks last year. He's had 10 sacks the past couple of years, but sacks don't tell the story.
Yeah, what's his impact?
Right, and again, we're talking about one of the worst defenses in the NFL last year. So obviously that pass rush isn't having the big impact that you're talking about, Pat. Now, but Coach, man, I'm going to turn it over to you. Talk to me a little bit about this roster, man, and what do you think? How do you think they set up, man? What is the strengths and where do they need to improve?
I always start with, me. I always start with the offensive line. So what do you get there? Right tackle last year was a first-round draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Walker Little.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it was a first-round draft pick last year. So, how do you continue to develop him? And then with the interior, I mean, I was looking at the running back depth chart. I'm like, I forgot they had Tank Bigsby over there. So, with the running backs that you bring in, yes, Pat said it best. You're going to have.
No, they didn't. They didn't have a first-round draft pick tackle last year.
Where was Little drafted?
Walker Little.
I could have sworn he was a first-round draft pick. Hold on, let me look him up real quick.
Well, he's out of Stanford, but he's 26. He wasn't drafted last year.
No, I could have sworn because when they broke it down, it was because I was looking at where they came from, and it said 21-1. So I was like, okay, he was drafted in the first round. Okay, maybe I was wrong. No, he was second round, 45th. Okay, I don't know what they were putting up there. That's what threw me. I apologize.
had to check my statistician real quick, but
No, you good. It's when you bring it back up the what you call it. When you look at the depth chart, and it shows where some of the other guys came from, and then right after them it says 21 or 20.
No, that's not. Yeah,
Anton Harrison. I'm sorry.
Don't look at that. Yeah, that's not what it is.
That's what threw me. I was like, okay, wait a minute.
That's
what
just
that?
That's something that they got.
Because others they put down Minnesota. You see, all right. So that's what threw me. I was like, okay,
that's not how we read this depth chart right here. Yeah. Nah.
Okay.
Don't pay attention to those numbers. Pay attention to the colors. The colors is the colors is coded. The yellow colors are free agent ads. The purple colors are draft
picks, and the blue is
blue I think is undrafted free agents. The light greenish color, and then the blue is the people that's already been on the team from last year.
Okay. So all right, I apologize. So, but
okay.
I mean, the offensive lineman, is what really concerns me. So, what do you have out of them? So, what are you getting out of Cleveland? Ezra Cleveland, Walker Little, what type of players are you going to get? Because if that offensive line can, be physical at the point of attack and then help the run game, will the run game also help Trevor Lawrence? Because, you do have some, good quality outside pieces in the receiver aspect. Defensively, Pat broke it down perfectly. I couldn't have said it best. The only thing that I was wondering, because when they had Jordan Lewis and they brought him in, I was like, okay, I thought he was, a nickel. So, and they do have him there. But I also thought Christian Braswell was someone who I was like, okay, Christian has a great opportunity. And I'm familiar with him because he's from Rutgers. And I watched what he did and his progression. Now, he's second on the depth chart, but last year he got a lot of play. So I'm like, okay, was this going to be his opportune time to step up? But, you bring in Lewis, competition, hey, will it force them to step up? But, overall, when you look at their defense, last year, you guys said it best. They gave up 435 points. That's a lot.
Ridiculous.
And they only scored 320 points. So that's a differential of 115 points. So you're scoring about 19 points a game, but you're giving up roughly about 28-ish, somewhere around there, 29.
Mm-hmm.
So that's defensively, you're going to have to really step up more than offensively. You're going to have to produce, but defensively, as the offense continues to develop, you have an offensive-minded head coach coming in. What is he going to do to help that offense grow? Defense is going to have to do something. They're going to have to step up. And when Pat, you said it, you got to look at, Walker and Allen up. And I looked at it, I was like, wait a minute, you got some good defensive ends over there. Or I thought you did. Where are they at?
They had 34 sacks last year, Coach.
Yeah,
they had 34 sacks last year, man. And that was near the bottom of the league. It was fifth least.
So what's the scheme? What type of scheme? What are you doing? Who's DC? How are you taking advantage of this? Let me see. Can I see how many yards they were giving up? Defense. Defensively, they rushing. The Jaguars were giving up 4.4 yards per carry, 511 carries for 2,254 yards, 19 touchdowns given up, 20 plus yards. You gave up 12 over the whole season. So, they definitely have to improve in the run game. Pat already spoke about their passing, their defensive backfield. There's concerns there. But it starts with the run game. What I always talk, what I always preach, offensive line, defensive line. That's where the run game is won and lost. And that's where, you have two edge rushers. Okay, great. But what are you getting from your interior? What are your linebackers doing to help in the run game? And remember, I talked about Jack Kaiser earlier. Teams are going to try and run, well,
Run straight at him.
Are you going to force him to be, to come down consistently in the run game? What type of defense are you going to run? It says a forefront, but is it more? Is it going to be over under? Are you going? What are you going to do to take away the run and force teams to be one dimensional? And then hopefully your edge rushers will step up and play at the level that they're touted to be as far as pass rushers.
Yeah, man. 10 games last year, Trevor Lawrence, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And to me, I'm with Pat. That's kind of where it starts, man. This kid is making $200. He got a 5-year, $275 million contract, and
yes,
you got some pieces. You got some pieces. It's not the best roster, but you got some pieces. Make it work on off now. On defense, I'm with you, man. I think this team just gonna struggle. I don't feel their direction. I don't feel the direction that they're headed, because you got these pass rushers and they should be producing, man, but you only had 34 sacks last year. Sacks ain't the telling story of it all, but I'm sure if we was to go a little bit deeper, we'd see a bigger problem than just the sacks. You know what I mean? So we don't not have enough. Yeah,
it's called confidence. It's called, momentum. Your offense takes away from you, but we'll get more deep into that as we get into the season and we see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, man. And speaking of the season, man, this is how it shapes up for Jacksonville. This is how it shapes up, man. Carolina, Cincy, Houston, San Francisco out the gate. You get Kansas City, Seattle, Los Angeles right there. And then you got a stretch of Vegas, Houston, the Chargers, the Cardinals, the Titans, Colts, Jets. It's not the hardest schedule in the world, fellas. It's not. And they got them at 7.5, though. Seeing the roster, seeing the schedule, I think they're going to have some difficulties in the beginning. I will say that. But towards the end, they should pick up a few games. But 7.5, man. 7.5, man. What we doing? Over or under for Jackson?
All right. I'm going under, bro. Yeah. Look at that first, out of the first 8 games, first 7 games. You got Carolina. I think Carolina can beat them. Cincinnati, I think that's a butt whooping. Houston, I think that's a butt whooping. San Francisco, I think can beat them. Kansas City, I think is a butt whooping. Seattle, I think can beat them. The Rams, damn sure can beat them. I think they could be 1-6.
Yeah.
At best, maybe 2-5 in those first 7 games. And then you play the Raiders. Let's just say I give them the Raiders 3-5. Houston, no. Los Angeles, Chargers, no. Cardinals, let's just say they beat the Cardinals, 4. Tennessee, 5. Indianapolis, maybe 6. New York Jets, no. I think they lose to them. Denver, no. And they're going to lose one of those Indianapolis-Tennessee games, as they always do. Yeah, I see them 7 at best. Best. I'm going under, man.
Coach, what you got, man? Over under 7.5 for Jacksonville, man. Looking at the schedule and knowing what you know about the roster and the overall team now.
I'm under. I'm taking under because, even if they started 2-0, even if they started 2-0, it's just right after that, those next 5 games is like, okay, I can't see it. So, but and I don't think they're going to, win the first 2. I'm not saying that they're definitely going to win it. They can come out 1-1. Like what Pat said, 1-6 to start. And then you go to Vegas. Are you beat up when you go to Vegas by that point in time? And are you mentally tapped out? Because you have a new coaching staff.
And you're going to walk over the Raiders, man.
No, I don't think that. Because we talked about Exactly. And Carroll is going to do his thing, to instill a culture over there. Pat broke it down. I mean, Houston, no, because it's on the road, Chargers, even Arizona is not an easy one for them. It's like you look at it, and it's can they win? Can they win 7 games? Yes, they can win 7 games. Can they push 8 games? Maybe. It all, like you said, both of you said, it depends on Trevor Lawrence. Number one, Trevor Lawrence is on the field. Number two, what type of protection are you giving him? What type of influence in the run game are you guys doing, to help offensively? And then defensively, what are you doing? What are you going to do? Because that second game in Cincinnati against that offense, woo! With the defense that you played from last year, 430 plus points.
But look at the offenses they facing. You facing Cincinnati. You facing Houston. You know what I'm saying? We'll see what San Francisco is, but they still got Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey. Kansas City, they're going to be a good offense.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams, good offense. Mm-hmm. Seattle, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got the Chargers.
Yes, I'm with you.
Arizona could put up points.
Mm-hmm.
Denver could put up points.
So I mean, you're right. It's they have to have an improved defense from last year. That's the first thing. And what are you getting in the trenches? What are you getting in the trenches to allow Trevor Lawrence so we can see, can he be the money quarterback that he's being paid to be? So,
but I'm going under.
Yeah.
I can't see this team winning 8 games. I'm sorry, Jacksonville Jaguar fans. I know, I understand. You want hope. You got Travis Hunter. You got Trevor Lawrence. TNT. Travis and Trevor. But I don't think that's going to get you to 8 wins. I don't think that's going to get you to 8 wins. And while your division isn't tough, and we're going to get to the Colts, and we're going to get to the Tennessee Titans, but let's not act like you're head and shoulders above those teams. And I don't think you're beating the Texans either, because that seems to be the cream of this division. I don't see it. I don't have a lot of faith in this team. And me and Pat, we've done a lot of Jacksonville Jaguars games the past couple of years, and nah, man, Trevor Lawrence, I'm sorry, that might be a mistake. That might be something they will regret, but you still got to play him, and you still got to play football. I don't see it turning out too well, even though you got a so-called soft schedule. Tell me who you stopping out of those offensive teams that we talked about with the defense that you got, that you put out there on the field. Rookies are rookies, and they're going to play like rookies, which means you're going to have a lot of mistakes, probably some turnovers, probably some miscommunication. And even if you're competitive, you'll probably lose those close games because you have a rookie head coach. So, again, I don't think this is lining up to be a good season for Jacksonville. I'm definitely taking the under here with the Jags, man. But last thoughts, man, before we move on to our next team, fellas.
Jaguars need some help.
It's going to have to come from Trevor Lawrence, man. If Trevor Lawrence turns out to be that $55 million man and go out there and make sound decisions and make, some clutch passes here or there, they may get that over. But I just don't have no belief in that kid, man. I just don't.
I said it before, with the new coach, especially a coach who quickly ascended to the position. What are you getting out of him? What type of system is he implementing to help develop the players on this roster, whether they're rookies or veterans? What are you doing to, help these players get the most out of their ability? So, And then, you guys said it, Trevor Lawrence, number one, he got to stay on the field, man. The best ability is availability. Trenches, I always speak on it. What are you doing down there in the trenches to help him? And, you look like you have some decent running back. So, what type of running game are you going to establish? So, we'll see. But yeah, help, like you said, Pat, yeah, they need a whole lot of help, so a whole lot of help and a whole lot of
Mac Jones, though. Mac Jones.
Man, please.
All right, y'all, man. We're gonna switch it over, man, and we're gonna talk about the Colts, man. We're gonna keep this thing moving, man. We'll be right back.